Hi guys, and welcome back to Stir Crazy. My name's Jake. I'm one of the other members of Stir Crazy that does some of these videos. Usually I'm behind the scenes, but this time I'm going to be in front of the camera again. I've not done this for a while, so I'm a bit rusty today. So welcome to Acid House, guys. So this week we are going to be covering, as the name suggests, acid drinks. Drinks that contain acid in them. As anyone that is familiar with acid house culture knows that it's not really too much about the drinking. So what we're talking about when we talk about acids is quite literally the acids that are found in cocktails and how, as bartenders, we can actually use acids to manipulate ingredients to create acidity in drinks. As always, guys, you've got your boxes in front of you. It will be the standard 1 to 4 bottles, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are 2 of the drinks, and then you should also have the 2 pouches, 5 and 6. Those are 2 made up cocktails in the pouches, and we're going to be showing you how to make those ones as well. So 4 drinks today, guys. As well as that, you should have some garnishes, a dehydrated orange wheel, a little sour peach ring, and then some celery salt. There's only 3 garnishes, guys. As the 4th drink, we've kind of incorporated the garnish into the liquid itself, and I'll explain a little bit more about that later. Glassware you're going to need this week, guys. I've got some laid out in here in front of me. Our first drink is going to be a highball. So we've talked about highballs before. So nice tall cylindrical vessel for that one. Second drink is going to be shaken up and served in a coupe or martini glass. So I've got a coupe here ready to go with that one. And then the 2 pouch drinks, guys. The first one is stirred down over ice in a rocks glass, old fashioned style. So a whiskey or rocks glass or tumbler will be perfect for that one. And then the last drink, we've put down a martini glass. I'm actually going to be using a flute, and I'll explain a little bit more why I'm going to be using a flute as I go through the drink, because it sort of relates to where the drink originates from. But you can use another coupe or another martini, or if you've got a champagne flute, that would actually work really, really nice as well. Ice-wise this week, guys, we just need cubed ice. So I've got mine here ready to go. No crush this week, so we don't need to bash any of our ice and make it, crushed up. Just cubed ice will be absolutely fine. Equipment wise, so like I said, guys, we're going to be building a drink in a highball vessel, so a spoon is going to be a necessity for that one. We're shaking the drink as well, so cocktail shakers at the ready. And as always, if you don't have a cocktail shaker, why haven't you got one by now? You've been doing this for a year, surely you've picked one up by now. But if you still don't have a cocktail shaker, guys, remember you can always hack your way by using a food container or jam jars or anything that you can get the liquid and ice into that you can seal off and shake. That will work brilliantly. I've got some measuring devices as I'm measuring my liquids, but you won't need those. And then something to stir down a cocktail in. I've got a mixing glass here that I'm going to be using. But as always, guys, if you don't have a mixing glass, any sort of pint glass will work brilliantly. Anything tall that isn't sort of got a ridge or a pattern on the inside, as it's easier to move the liquid and ice around in the glass. And something that's nice and tall so you can get plenty of ice in there as well. Okay guys, so let's make our first drink. So as you can tell by the names of all of these drinks, guys, if you're familiar with the acid house genre, we've named each of these drinks after like a classic acid house song. I'm not that quite familiar with them, but this first drink, Pacific State by 808. So this drink is a highball glass. So you're gonna need your highball glass, guys, and you're gonna need bottles number 1 and 2, your celery salt, and then some soda water as well. You should have a can of soda water in your pack. So first of all, guys, before we do anything, we need to prepare our glasses. We're going to be using a celery salt rim. Whenever I'm rimming a glass, guys, I don't like to do an entire one, just because then you don't have an option of trying it without whatever you've added to the glass. So I like to just dust one side of the glass lightly. That way I can choose which side of the glass I want to try it either with the celery salt or without. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, just basically wet the side of your glass and dust the celery salt over it. I'm going to do now. And you don't need much, as this is quite a potent ingredient, guys. So what I've done is I've just given myself a little bit on the edge there, just so I can try it with the celery salt, as it's going to enhance that sort of celery flavor, as this drink uses an apple and celery cordial. Now it's the cordial element that has had some acid adjusting done to it. And you're going to hear this word a lot, and you've heard it a lot in our previous masterclasses. What we're doing today is just going a little bit more in depth into what we mean when we talk about acid adjusting. And it sort of relates to these powders I've got in front of me here. And all of these will sort of relate to an ingredient or a fruit. These are all acids found naturally in the world as well. We've stuck to natural acids today. We didn't want to go into anything like phosphoric or anything that was a little bit man-made, as they can be, they're quite dangerous to use as well. And unless you know what you're doing, it can get a bit messy. So we wanted to stick to some natural ones today. So So I'll go into a little bit of in-depth into what I've done with this drink, but let's make it first as we've got something to enjoy while I'm rambling on. So, got our celery salt in our glass. Next thing we need to do, guys, is grab some ice and get that in your glass, because we're going to want this nice and cold. As we always know, highballs, along with all cocktails, need to be nice and icy cold. That helps keep our carbonation nice and fresh, and it's a better experience as well. So, grab bottle number one, guys, and nice and simple. In bottle number one, you're just going to find 50 ml of Haig Clubman single grain Scotch. So go ahead and add that one into your glass now, like so. And then in bottle number two, you'll find your apple and celery cordial. So you've got 30 ml in the bottle, guys. So I'm just going to add 30 ml to my highball now. And then we just want to go ahead, give that one a nice stir, making sure everything's incorporated. Usually you find the ice will drop down a bit now, so you can add a bit more in. Don't hesitate to add more ice to your glass, guys. The more ice, the better. It's going to help keep that drink colder, and the more ice you've got in there, the less it's going to, the slower it's going to melt, so the less dilution you're going to get to that drink, as we're adding dilution with the soda water, so we don't want to add too much dilution from the ice. We just want it to keep the drink nice and cold. Now, we want to make sure we give this one a good stir, guys, because that soda water is lighter than the booze. It's going to sit on top, and you'll find the first few sips, as we're not using a straw, it's just going to be pure soda, and then you're just going to get sort of like the sickly sweet cordial at the bottom and the booze in the center. So give that a nice stir, getting everything mixed up, like so. And that's it, guys. That's how we make our first drink. So this is the Pacific State by 808 State. So it's an apple and celery whiskey highball. So cheers, everyone. I'm just going to give it a little sip. Yeah, definitely. You get that. What a lot of you should be getting right now, guys, is that sort of acidic feeling you get when you try something sour. It sort of travels along the sort of jawline of your mouth, and you feel this real sort of astringency, sort of puckeriness, which is a great way of describing the acid that I've used today in this ingredient. So for this, I've used malic acid. Like I said before, guys, each acid relates to a fruit or to a sort of a fruit found or a process of acid. Sorry, that will make more sense as I go on, but firstly, we're going to be talking about fruits. All fruits that are acidic or sour fruits have acids in them, and so apples, green apples, have malic acid in them, which is why I've used malic acid. Malic acid is essentially, it tastes like green apple. It tastes like sour green apples. If you think about those sort of sour apple sweets you might have had, that is malic acid in its sort of purest form. I mean, each acid we use, when bartenders reuse them, they're usually used to create a process. Either what we're trying to do is capture some acidity that's lost in the processes of when we create our ingredients, or maybe it's to alter the acidity of a certain ingredient that we might want to use, but maybe it doesn't bring enough acidity in. Sometimes it's to change the texture and aroma and flavor of an ingredient. And then sometimes it's just out there to create something weird and wacky. And what we've done is we've taken each of these processes, and each drink represents a process that we use. So with this first one, we've made an apple and celery cordial. Now, one, to make them shelf stable, to make them easy to sort of transport and make them nice and safe, we clarify a lot of our liquids. We don't want too much sediment and cloudy stuff in the liquid, as the clearer things are, the better they can be as well, especially when you're pasteurizing all of these liquids and stuff like that. So when we clarify liquids, you sometimes lose some of the components in there, especially with apples. So what we did was literally, we took whole Granny Smith apples, chopped them up, got rid of the sort of core part, and then we just juiced them. And we juice them straight into a coffee filter. And what the coffee filter does is it just holds back all of the solid parts that we don't want in there, giving us, it literally comes out like crystal clear water with a slight green tinge to it. And then we mix that with some celery juice that we did the same thing to, clarified it to sort of keep back all of the solids, mix it together, and then pasteurize it with some sugar. And when we do that, what we find is you lose some of the subtle acidity that was in those apples. If you think about a Granny Smith apple, they're quite puckering when you bite into them. They've got that acidity to them. They're sweet, but they're not really used for their sweetness. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to bring back that acid that we'd lost. So what better way than to use malic, because it is the acid found in apples. So we just took the cordial that we'd made up, weighed it out, and then we added in 20% solution of malic acid, because usually when we're working in acids, we work in solutions and in sort of percentages. So, because if you think about it, every fruit, the percentage of that fruit will be acid. So we're sort of looking at what percentage the original fruit would have had. It's a bit sciencey, but essentially we're just trying to get that puckerness back. So when you try it, on its own. If you've got anything left in the bottle from the Cordial, give it a try, because you will have that sour flavour coming through along the palate. And making things really sort of acidic. Yeah, and sort of puckering. Malic acid is an acid that sort of exists in your mouth for quite a while. Other acids that we'll go into, they sort of give you an instant zing hit and then dissipate quite quickly, whereas malic lingers around for quite a bit. And it's one of the main acids found within lime juice as well, which we'll get into in a bit. So yeah, so that's what we were trying to sort of incorporate or replicate with this cocktail, guys. It was trying to create that sort of fresh apple sort of orchard flavour with our highball, you know, paired with the sort of single grain whiskey, which is quite a lighter style of Scotch. And then we've added in the celery just to give it a nice earthiness as well, because if you think about orchards and sort of farmland and that kind of area with flavours, the celery adds a nice earthiness to it. And hence why I wanted you guys to sort of only rim half the glass as well, so you can try it with the celery salt. That salt's going to carry through some of the other sort of subtler flavours through from the whiskey, some of the vanilla notes and things like that. As salt is a bit of a flavour carrier, but we don't want to constantly have that sort of celery hit, so it's why you can turn your way to the other side of the glass and try something that's a little less salt heavy. So yeah, there you have it, guys. That is our first drink, the Pacific State by 808. So cheers again, guys. Okay guys, so that was our first drink. I'm going to start talking about our next drink now, but don't worry if you're not ready to move on to the next drink. I'm going to talk about it first and our thought process behind it, and then we'll make it at the end, giving you guys a bit of a time to catch up, as I'm sure you were sort of sipping and savouring your highball at the moment. So our next drink, guys, is called Acid Thunder by Fast Eddie. The more I hear these names, the less I know what they are, but we'll keep powering through. Like I said, guys, I think Paddy has curated an Acid House playlist, so check the link below and you'll be able to listen to some Acid House while you're making these lovely cocktails. So, the first process I talked about was using acids to sort of recapture some of the flavor that you lose in the processes when we're creating ingredients. The other way, or the next way we're going to talk about, is using acids to alter the acidity of an already existing ingredient to make it behave like something else. So what we're talking about is everything is measured in pH levels when we're talking about acids. You know, some of you might remember in school you would have had those sort of pH testing kits or sort of multicolored strips for testing some acidity levels. So we're talking about, and you can sort of look on a scale of where fruits sit in an acidity range. You know, lemons and limes are going to sit in a similar sort of pH level. Then you're going to have your sort of grapefruits, yuzu, things like that are going to be, they're not quite as acidic as lemon and lime, but they've still got some acidity to them. That's a really hard word to say. And then you've got things like oranges. Oranges sit pretty much way off because they're not really that acidic. While they've got a lot of flavor, they don't bring a lot of acidity to a cocktail. So what we can do is, this is where the term acid adjusting comes in. Because what we're doing is we're taking acids found in other citrus fruits and we're using them to change the acidity level of something like orange to make it behave like something else, e.g. like a lemon or a lime. Maybe we want to add orange into a cocktail, but we want it for its flavor, but we also then don't want to add in another flavor like lemon or lime. We want the orange to just be the only fruity flavor, but it's not bringing enough acidity in. And this is sort of the thinking behind our next drink, because we've taken a classic, one that I enjoy, but sometimes find that it is a little bit lacking something. So what I've done is I've taken an element of the drink, e.g. the orange, and I've acid adjusted it to make it behave more like a lemon or a lime in the cocktail. So the cocktail is called the Blood and Sand, guys. So this is an old school classic coming from the Savoy cocktail book. We mentioned this book quite a lot as it is one of the Godfather sort of biblical cocktail books. It hosts so many cocktail recipes. We're not sure if the Blood and Sand originated at the Savoy cocktail or if Harry Craddock was the author of the drink, but we know that that's the first time it was published. And it sort of existed around the 30s, and that makes sort of sense as the name Blood and Sand, it comes from a movie of the time called Blood and Sand, starring Rudolph Valentino, if my memory serves me correct, of old school movies. And at this time they used, bartenders were known to use quite a lot of pulp culture references, like they do now, to create their drinks names. Things like the aviation, because there was a lot of aviation going on at the time, and pilots and things like that. And I think photography was picking up, so that's where the filmograph cocktail would have come from. So the Blood and Sand, it comes from the name of this movie. And the ingredients all work, but I find that the drink is a bit lackluster. It's missing something. So the original drink used a combination of blended Scotch whiskey, which we're using today. We're using Chivas. Anyone that took part in our whiskey tasting masterclass with Paddy, we covered Chivas Regal, so he would have explained some of the tasting notes you're going to be getting from that one, so maybe you can identify them today. Cherry Heering, such a hard word to say, essentially cherry brandy or a cherry liqueur. Some sweet vermouth, so you've got that kind of classic sweet vermouth spirit mixture that would have been seen quite a lot. And then finally, it would have had orange juice added into it. Now, all of these ingredients work beautifully together, but what I find when I try the drink is it's a bit, for want of a better term, flabby. A bit, you're missing something. That orange is almost about to tease you with some acidity, and it kind of, there is none. And it kind of has the remnants of something that almost sounds like a whiskey sour. So I'm always finding when I'm trying the drink, I'm missing that acidity. So what I've done is I took oranges and made an orange cordial. Cordials are essentially roughly acidified syrups. So that way I'm sort of preserving the ingredient, but then I'm not making sure, so we're not adding sweetness really. It's going to bring in a little bit of sweetness, but really what it's going to bring in is a punch, because I've acid adjusted this so it behaves a lot like lemon juice. So lemons are sort of made up of mainly citric acid. They're sort of around 6% citric acid you find in a lemon. And like I said before, citric acid, it hits you straight away and then dissipates quite quickly. So it's really intense hits of sourness. So that's why it kind of plays perfectly in this cocktail, because you're going to get that sour hit, and then that's going to sort of dissipate, and then you're going to get all of the other sort of lovely sweet cherry and the sort of woody heather honey notes of the whiskey coming through, and then the sort of the tart sort of wine flavor of the vermouth coming through. So it helps give the drink another element. So yeah, nice and simple. What I did, guys, is I zested some oranges into sugar, making an oleosaccharum, as we've mentioned before. Essentially, I'm making a sherbet. I then took the orange juice that was left over, I clarified it. This one was a little bit harder to clarify, as oranges, it's not as easy as just putting them through a filter. Some of those finer solids will still get through. And the solids that exist, they're sort of made up of an ingredient called pectin. So what I did is I took an ingredient called Pectinex. I've talked about this a little bit before. Added it to the orange juice. It sort of split the juice apart, so you get the solids on the top and then the sort of nice clear stuff underneath. And then I just put it through a coffee filter, getting rid of all of those solids. Mixed it all together so you get this lovely orange liquid, and then I acid adjusted it to behave more like lemon juice. So I didn't go for like a 20% solution. I went higher to sort of about 30%. You don't want to go too far with acids that you buy from these can also be purchased from your health food shops. You don't want to go too far with them, as they run the risk of becoming artificial tasting, as you know, these are sort of concentrated powder forms of them. So I went for about a 30% solution, not the full 6% you get in in lemons originally, and then just basically tasted it till you get that intense acidity like you get when you're trying lemon juice by itself. And then I found this just, brought me in that missing element that I was looking for in the cocktail. Enough about that now, guys. Let's make the drink, as I'm sure you're all ready to do this now. So you're gonna need your shaker for this one, as it's a shaken drink. And you're gonna need a coupe glass as well. So what we're gonna do first of all, guys, is grab your coupe glass or your martini glass, whatever you're using, and add some ice to it, as we wanna get that one chilling. Onto one side, and then you want to grab yourselves bottles number 3 and bottles number 4, and then we're going to add these into the shaker. So what you've got in bottles number 3 is, this is also, guys, it's a nice easy to remember cocktail, is everything's in equal parts. So if you're wanting to replicate this yourself, nice and easy, it's just those 4 ingredients that I'm going to go through now in equal parts. So it's blended Scotch whiskey. Today I'm using Chivas, so 20 ml. It's just shy of a 25ml measure. Sweet vermouth, 20ml again. And that's everything you're gonna find in bottle number 3, guys. And then in bottle number 4, we've got cherry Heering, or a cherry liqueur, cherry brandy, sort of all of the above, really. This is a home one we made in-house here as well, guys. We made it using the method that I talked about in our Thanksgiving masterclass, where I went through how we make homemade liqueurs in our bars as well. So if you ever want to know how to make your own fruit liqueurs, go back and check out that video as well, as we go into some detail about how we make homemade liqueurs in our bars. And then finally, in that bottle, you will find our orange cordial. It's again 20ml, and that's what's in bottle number 4. Alongside this as well, guys, like I said, this, to me, it was all the makings of a whiskey sour. And for me, a true characteristic of a whiskey sour is always its sort of foamy texture. Usually made from egg white. Obviously, we don't want to use egg whites right now as one. We're not going to be able to transport an egg to you guys very easily. And yeah, eggs are sort of a bit, dodgy. Not everyone likes the idea of putting raw egg in their cocktails. So once again, we've gone back to our friends at Miss Better's Bitters for their Miracle Foamer. So what I've done is in bottle 1, guys, bottle 3, the Scotch and the vermouth, I've just added in some foamer as well to give the drink a nice creamy head on the top of the cocktail. You don't have to do this, guys, but Miss Better's sort of a tip or a trick they have with their foamers is they say, when you think about an egg white, when we're adding an egg white into a cocktail, there's, you know, you're looking at around sort of 20 ml of volume that you're adding into the cocktail. So what they like to do is, as well as the foamer, about 1/3 of a pipette I've put in, which is what will be in your bottle, they like to add about 20 ml of liquid. And this is just gonna help make up for that lost volume that you would have from not using an egg white. And it's nice and easy to remember as this cocktail is all equal parts, so 20 ml again. That's everything we need, guys. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna add some ice, and we're gonna give it, first of all, a good hard shake with ice. As we're gonna be doing as we've mentioned it before, a reverse dry shake where we shake it once without ice, and then again once with ice, and then again without ice. So first of all, get your ice in there, get your cocktail nice and sealed, and give it a good hard shake. You're looking for around 10 seconds of shaking, guys, until the tin or whatever you're using is nice and icy cold. You can feel that the ice has gone to work and the drink is nice and diluted and chilled. And then we're going to strain this out and give it another shake. So we call this reverse dry shaking because originally dry shaking you shook without ice to whip up the cocktail, whip up the proteins in the egg whites as it would have been at the time. And then you would have added ice to shake for dilution. But this technique of reverse dry shaking, it sort of came out a few years ago, sort of about 10 years ago. I mean, the reason we started doing it was because you found that when you add the ice back in again, the ice knocks some of that air out that we want in the cocktail. So you find that by reverse dry shaking, what you're doing is you're diluting and chilling, which we want. And this is cold now, this is not going to heat up from another shake. So it's just going to whip it up and whack all that air into the foam and give it that nice creamy head that we're looking for. There, just give it another good hard shake without ice, mixing everything up. Sort of roughly around the sort of 8 to 10 seconds again. You can almost hear it as well thickening up in the shaker, sort of becoming a bit more dense. Once that's nice and shaken, give it another separation, dump the ice out of your glass. Glass is nice and chilled now. Grab a strainer, something to sort of sift the liquid, because you might find that there's still going to be some shards of ice in there as well that we don't want to come through. And then we're just going to strain this liquid into our glass. Go, guys, and we're going to let that settle out a bit. And to garnish this one, guys, you're going to grab your dehydrated orange that we've given you. I'm just going to place that one on the top of the glass. Let that sit there. The foam should hold it in place. And as this settles, you're going to get that sort of lovely, deep, rich red color from all those ingredients that we've used, along with the orange. So there we have it, guys. There's our second drink, Acid Thunder by Fast Eddie. So cheers, everyone. Have a little sip now. Yeah, arguably, in my opinion, much better than the original. As the original, especially when you're working with ingredients like cherry Heering or cherry herring, they're really sweet. And sometimes I found the originals, depending on the ratios, it came across as too sweet, and you lost some of the subtlety of the whiskey and things like that. So what that is sort of citric acid that we've added into the Cordial does, it just helps bring another element to the drink that it was missing before. I mean, really gives that, that sort of acidity we're looking for. So cheers, everyone. I hope you're enjoying that one. So as always, now you've got a cocktail in your hand again. I'm now going to go back into the science again about our next cocktail and the next acid, which is going to be lactic. Okay, guys. So yeah, next process or technique. So far we've talked about using acids to recapture some of the flavor lost or the acidity lost in the process of creating ingredients. And then we've also talked about how we can use acids to alter the acidity, of an ingredient to create, make it mimic things like lemons and limes. We talked about citric and malic acid. Fun fact, so citric is the predominant acid found in lemons. Malic is the one found in green apples. But when you bring those two together, they sort of make up the basis of acids found in lime juice. Usually it's about 4% solution of citric to about 2% solution of malic. So we sometimes will bring those two together. So for example, I wanted this to be lemony, so I went just for citric, but if I wanted a sort of more tropical, spicy lime flavor, I would have gone for a combination of citric and malic. I mean, this is just sort of some of the stuff that we mess around with in the bars when we're creating ingredients to sort of acidify things and sort of the crazy sciencey stuff that we go on to. Next thing, guys, is I'm going to be showing you how we can also use acids to sort of alter the texture and flavor of a cocktail. And for this, we're going to be talking about lactic acid. So what is lactic acid? Whenever I mention this to people, their brains instantly go to sort of that thing you get when you're working out or going for a run or exercising, when you get that sort of, it's a little bit, I guess it's kind of bubbly, for want of a better term, sicky feeling when you've been exercising and you're sort of feeling a bit strained out. That is lactic acid that our body produces naturally, but it's also found in the world of fermentation. So when we ferment things, lactic acid is produced. That's the thing that creates what we call the sour taste. Think about things like sauerkraut, salami, and then more appropriately for things like drinks, things like yogurt. The cultures that are created when sort of fermentation process takes place is lactic acid. That's what's created. That's what gives yogurt its sourness. And while this sounds odd, and you've got to think, well, how would you utilize that in a drink? What this can bring, as well as a sourness, is it can actually bring a creamy quality to it. If you think about yogurt is quite creamy, and that's the lactic acid going to work as well. So we can manipulate ingredients using lactic acid to create a creamy sort of texture, which is what we've done for our next drink. So this drink, it's not really a riff off of anything. It kind of resembles an old fashioned, but it's sort of our own little creation that we've messed around with. And we're sort of showing you how lactic acid works in a sort of powder form, as well as how you can utilize sort of the natural occurring form of lactic acid in the form of yogurt. So there's a couple of weird sounding ingredients here, guys. So the first thing we've done is we've created a yogurt wash tequila. We've mentioned fat washing in the past before. So fat washing, it's nice and simple. What you're doing is you're altering the flavor of a spirit or sort of liqueur or vermouth, whatever you're deciding to fat wash. You're altering the flavor, and then you're also altering the texture. You're adding in that creaminess, especially that creaminess that comes with something like lactic acid. So nice and simple, guys. What we've done, this is why my kilners are here now, because they're still actually going right now, is we just took some peach yogurt, as I wanted a peach flavored yogurt. We wanted to go for nice high fat yogurt as well. No low fat here, guys. The more fat, the better, as we are fat washing. So we got some nice full fat peach yogurt, mixed it in with the tequila at a ratio of about 3/4 of a part to 1 part. So about 500 ml of yogurt to about 1 bottle of tequila. Mixed it all together, and what happens is pretty gross looking. You get this sort of almost split white liquid in your sort of container, and it looks really, really gross at first. You let that sit for about 24 to 36 hours in your fridge, and make sure it's in your fridge as well, guys, as yogurt is a fermented product, and fermentation will be encouraged if it's left out at room temperature. So we always want to make sure we keep our things in the fridge, otherwise they will continue to ferment. Let it sit for about 36 hours, and then we just took that and then we've strained it through a coffee filter, which I've got here. And as you can see, what the filter has done is it's captured all of the yogurt, held it back, all the solids, and what it's left us with is this lovely crystal clear tequila. So that's what I've got here. I've got my peach yogurt washed tequila. So that's sort of using lactic acid as it's found naturally in products that you guys can buy from any sort of local supermarket and things like that. For the actual powder itself, what we've done is I've created what we've called a strawberry cream syrup. Well, I say we've created, this is based off of some recipes that other people have created and shown how you can use lactic acid in the real world. I'll always recommend to bartenders and amateur mixologists out there, if you're going to be purchasing products and trying this stuff yourself, look at what other people do first, as they can show you the proper way of using it, and then you don't find that you spoil ingredients or waste anything. So for this strawberry cream syrup, what we've done is we've taken a strawberry syrup, just nice and simple sugar syrup that we've infused with fresh fruit for around sort of 36 hours till we capture all of that strawberry flavor. And then a vanilla syrup, thinking about these sort of pairings of all these sort of stone fruits and fruits, so things like peach, strawberry, vanilla, all familiar flavors. And then we've taken vanilla, just vanilla seeds, scrape them into sugar syrup, and then I've added in we had about sort of 500 ml of vanilla syrup, added in about 2.5 grams of lactic acid, and about 0.5 gram of salt. As we know, salt is a flavor carrier. It's not really there to add a saltiness as much as it is just to carry through some of the other flavors that we're looking for from our syrup. Mix those all together till it's nice and vanilla, and it creates what I can only describe as a creamy texture to the syrup. It makes it creamy. Vanilla, you know, a vanilla syrup by itself, if you think about things like vanilla lattes and what like that, they're pure sweetness, but texture-wise they're like any other syrup, whereas that lactic acid, it just brings this beautiful creaminess to it. And then what we've done is we've mixed that with our strawberry syrup, and finally, if you think about strawberries and cream, there is a citrus there as well. So what we've done is we've added in a citric solution. So I talked about solutions before. Nice and simple, I just took 80 grams of filtered water, added in 20 grams of citric acid, mixed it together into solution, and I added in about 80 ml of that solution to this, just to give that sort of strawberries and cream, citrus sour sort of flavor. And that's it, guys. That's nice and simple. So that's the two main ingredients that we've used. And then finally, just to add another dimension to the cocktail, we were kind of, like I said, kind of riffing off an old fashioned in sort of components, but in flavor wise, it's going to be a little bit different. And just to pair off with that sort of strawberry, everything was quite sweet. Even though there was some sourness there as well. We just wanted to create some more depth to the cocktail. So we've added in some black pepper bitters. These are made by the guys at, I apologize for the name, but this is genuinely their name, Bitter Bastards. These are great guys. They make sort of bitters of all sort of different flavors. They're quite cool. They sort of use a centrifugal extraction to extract all this lovely flavor. So we've got some black pepper bitters. There's strawberry and black pepper. That's a really nice pairing that we want to work with. So that's all the individual components, guys. I'm gonna once again stop rambling on and show you how to make the drink. This one's even simpler for you guys. You just need pouch number 5. Grab that one along with a rocks glass. And what you wanna do, guys, fill your rocks glass up with some ice, pour the pouch over it, and then we wanna give it a good stir for around sort of 60 revolutions, sort of around 20 seconds till it's nice and icy cold. And we wanna add some dilution in there as well, as there's not too much dilution added in there, it's just the syrup, so we wanna make sure we add some dilution in there as well, bringing it down so it's not too strong, as well as, you know, we don't want too much of that ABV hit. We want all the other flavors that we've been making to come through first. So then add that into your glass, give it a stir down. But what, if you ever wanted to come back to this, or if you ever fancied making this stuff yourself, what you've got individually, guys, like I said, it kind of has an old-fashioned format to it. So it's 50 ml of the yogurt washed tequila. 15 ml of our strawberry cream syrup. Like I said, guys, there's some acidity in this syrup as well. Usually I only go for about 10 ml in an old-fashioned of a syrup, but we've added in some acidity in there as well, guys, so it's gonna help not be too overpoweringly sweet. And then a few drops, about half a pipette of my black pepper bitters. And then I'm just gonna add some ice into my glass and give it a stir down. Give it a stir down. Like I said, once you've got that nice chill and dilution that you're looking for, give it a taste. If you find it's still a bit too, the ABV or the sort of alcohol burn is still a little bit too overpowering, give it another quick stir, maybe add some more ice if you've got room. And then once you've got it at a temperature that you're happy with, perfect. Grab your sour peach ring. Gonna add that one on the top, as we, you know, this is gonna have some nice sourness as well as some sweetness on the top of it. It's a nice, fun, playful garnish. And that is our next drink, guys. So, I forgot the name. And that is our third drink, guys. What Time Is Love by the KLF. These names make no sense, but hopefully there's some people out there that were familiar with Acid House, and these are quite familiar for you guys. But yeah, that's our next drink, guys. So go for a little sip now. Yeah, so like I said, guys, this one isn't so much for adding acidity, like that sort of puckering, sort of, it's more adding sourness, which sometimes can come across as a bit weird when you're talking about things like yogurt. You don't really want to think about sour, but it's sort of prolific and it is there. We're talking about sourness and that sort of creaminess that we're getting from the acid that's both in the syrup and in the tequila that we've washed as well. So yeah, so that's just another example of how we can use acids to not just add acidity, but add flavor. They can also change texture and create sort of new sort of textures and flavors when we're creating drinks. So cheers, everyone. Okay, guys, so let's get on to our last drink. Like I said, guys, I'm gonna let you enjoy the drink you're sipping right now while I talk about through it. So far I've talked about kind of practical ways that we use acids, getting a bit more weird at the end there. Finally, all of these, like I said, all of these acids come from fruits. So I talked about malic, I've talked about citric, and then lactic obviously is from the fermentation process. So the last one we're going to talk about is tartaric. So tartaric comes from grapes. It's the acid found in grapes. It's the thing that gives wine its acidity, and things like vermouth its acidity. So the last fruit we're talking about is grapes, and that's with tartaric. So what we've created for this last drink is what's known as champagne acid. Now, this isn't our own creation. A lot of the research we do when it comes to things like, I guess what we're talking about here is modernist thinking when it comes to bartending. There was a term that got thrown around a few years back called molecular mixology. It's an awful term, please don't ever use it. It makes you think of geeks in lab coats with, pipettes and big vials and things like that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just modernist ways and modernist approaches to bartending. And this sort of stemmed from gastronomy and this modernist approach when it comes to cooking. Think about crazy Michelin star stuff. Guys like Heston Blumenthal at the Fat Duck was a pioneer in this sort of stuff, making crazy creations and things like that. And it slowly has bled its way into the bartending world. And thanks to a chap by the name of Dave Arnold, we've mentioned him, I think, a little bit before. He wrote this book, Liquid Intelligence. Now, this is a heavy, heavy, heavy book. It is science heavy. It's got loads of techniques and crazy things in there that not everyone has the equipment or time or access to be able to do. But Dave talks a lot about acids, and he's a bit of a madman when it comes to creating cocktails. He's obsessed with making new techniques, processes, and flavors and things like that. He admits himself he spent the better part of 10 years obsessing over how to perfect a gin and tonic. Everything from the perfect way to carbonate it to clarifying the lime juice. It's a bit of a crazy guy. But alongside that, he also shows us and talks about in this book acids and how acids work, and this is where we get a lot of our information from. So he created this ingredient called champagne acid. So his thought process behind it is, if you think about tartaric acid is the acid found in grapes, and traditionally in champagne, before it becomes the next, I can't remember the name of the exact acid that happens, but originally before it's fermented, is actually tartaric and malic. That's the acids found in champagne. Once it goes through that secondary fermentation process, lactic acid takes over the malic and it creates a new acid. I forget the name of it, but anyway, the point being is lactic acid takes over and creates a fermentation process. That's what gives champagne its bubbles. So to create champagne acid, you literally just mix equal parts of tartaric and lactic, and what this does is it creates that sort of dryness that you get with champagne, that dry acidity when you think about a crisp glass of sort of fresh bubbles out of the fridge. It creates that dryness. So what we've done is we've taken champagne acid and we've sort of taken a classic champagne gin cocktail and we've riffed it up with a classic vodka disco cocktail. We've done a masterclass on it before, we've talked about it before. We love our disco drinks, and we love nothing more than taking disco drinks that are sort of frowned upon in some of the bartending communities, and finding a way of geeking them up and making them fun in sort of more bartendery for us. But at the end of the day, some of these drinks are great. So the champagne cocktail that we're riffing is a classic cocktail by the name of the French 75. This is a nice simple combination of gin, lemon juice, sometimes a little bit of sugar syrup, depending on your preference, topped up with champagne. We're using champagne acid, so it's a sham. And what we've done is in a sort of Frankenstein kind of way, we've put this together with the French martini. I love a French martini. It's a cheesy drink. Martini by name, but not a martini by nature. It comes from that era of martinis that we spoke about before, the 1980s, where everything served in a martini glass or a coupe glass was called a martini, even though sometimes they very much barely resembled a martini. Think about your espresso martinis. Later in the sort of early 2000s, the porn star martini and the French martini. Now, the original drink was comprised of vodka, a black raspberry liqueur by the name of Chambord. I think some of us will be quite familiar with that. And then pineapple juice. And it's a great pairing. Raspberry and pineapple work really well together. The pineapple juice, when it's put under agitation, foams up a little bit like egg white. So it kind of creates this lovely head on the cocktail as well. And then vodka was the go-to thing for everything for people because it was the 80s and the 90s and vodka was everyone's spirit of choice. So yeah, guys, so what we've done is we've taken these two cocktails together. So what we've done is we've kind of taken a French 75 and we've bashed it together with a French martini. French and French, none of these ingredients are very French. So sort of going down the core components, the way we've brought it together, we're still going to go with vodka. We wanted to go with vodka because we wanted a light tasting spirit. We didn't want anything too botanically or too heavy. And then for the pineapple element, what we've done is we've taken the lemon from the French 75, as we do want some acidity, as I, once again, like with the blood and sand, the original French martini, it's just lacking some of that sort of puckery sort of acidity that you're looking for in a cocktail, as all cocktails do want a little bit of acid in them. Mix that together with the sort of tropically softness of the pineapple, so we made a pineapple and lemon cordial. Similar process to how I made the orange cordial as well, so added in a bit of citric acid. Not quite as much this time, guys, as we didn't want too much acidity. Then alongside that, we've got the classic Chambord. You can't go wrong with Chambord. And then we've added in champagne acid. So like I said, we mixed together equal parts of tartaric and lactic into a water solution, and it creates this sort of cloudy, dry acid that we've added into the cocktail till we get that sort of same feeling you get when trying. It's quite difficult to get it quite right because obviously you're not tasting the bubbles, but you're gonna get that dry champagne feeling you get when you drink a glass of champagne. Just alongside all these sort of other citric, tropical, and sort of fruity flavors that you get from the French martini. Finally, guys, we took the bubbles out. We took the champagne element out. We took the sparkling element out. And we haven't given you a garnish, guys, because as you can all tell by your pouches, we added in some shimmer to give that cocktail its sparkly element that you've lost. So, bit fun, it's a bit disco. We wanted this one to be a proper disco drink, have a lot of laugh with it. Because this is quite a serious, sort of sciencey, geeky masterclass, so we wanted to have a bit of fun with some of these drinks as well. And while you might learn something about how we make our drinks or some of the cool techniques we use, we still wanted to make the drinks fun as well, because you know, even around all this geeky sciencey stuff, we like a bit of a laugh as well. So this drink, guys, it's going to be stirred down. So you need your mixing glasses, like I said before. Like with the previous drink that we just made, we just want to stir this one down over ice, but we're going to stir it into the mixing glass and strain it into either a coupe glass, or I've got a sort of flute glass in nod tradition to the original French 75, which is part of the inspiration for this drink, guys. So just add some ice into the glass, empty pouch number 6 into it, give it a stir down over ice, and then strain it in there. I'm just going to go ahead and add, I've got mine already pre-mixed up here myself, so I'm just going to add in 75 of that one into my glass. Add some ice. And similarly, like with the previous drink, looking at around sort of 60 revolutions, around 20 seconds. Or just until you sort of bring down some of that ABV. This one's not as strong in ABV as the previous one, guys, so you know, keep tasting it, make sure you're not going to go too far and over dilute it and lose some of the subtle flavors that we've got in there, as we want to keep this one nice and strong tasting. It's nice and cold, guys. Give it a little taste, see what you think. Perfect. Grab yourself a strainer, and then we're just going to strain this into your glass, like so. You get that cool, cheesy, geeky shimmer effect. So yeah, there we have it, guys. So did it again. And this was the only one that we could find acid house song that actually related to what's in this drink. This is the French Kiss. So cheers, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed this one and had a little bit of insight into how we make some of the more sciencey, geeky cocktails. And when next time myself or Paddy says the word acid adjusting, you might now get a little bit more about what we're talking about. But yeah, cheers, everyone. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Oh, it's a really good drink. It's a proper disco cocktail. Comment down below which one was your favorite, guys, which ones you liked. Maybe something that you might want to see coming up. We're always open to suggestions here at Stir Crazy. We want these to be as fun and as exciting for you guys as much as it is for us. So please let us know what you maybe want to see, or maybe what you might want us to cover in the future. Comment down below, hit us up on Instagram, tag us in all your pictures. We love seeing them. We love seeing the creations that you guys make. We do this for a living. We make these drinks, but we love to see the ones that you create, guys, because we love to see the way that you sort of dress your cocktails up and garnish them. So please tag our Stir Crazy page and let us see the creations that you make. What we've got coming up, guys, next week it's Valentine's week, so we've got a sort of Valentine's week themed box coming up where we've explored all the different sort of classic aphrodisiacs of the world, and we've incorporated them into some damn tasty drinks, if I do say so myself. So that is live on our website right now, guys, so please head to Stir Crazy Drinks and grab yourself a box. That is another 4-drink box as well, guys, so you know, we're going to keep trying to sort of make these as fun and interactive as possible with drinks that we make. As always, guys, stay safe. Thank you for taking part, and we will see you all soon. Thank you. I'm and keeping that in. I'm going to put that hip noise somewhere. It's going to be a little, you're going to listen out for it and then there'll just be a bit of silence when all you hear is